everyone, it's Heather from Heather Travels, and today I'm going to talk to you about the pros and cons of different types of cruise ship staterooms. Okay, so before I get started, I'd like to ask you to do me a favor. Would you please take a second and click on the red subscribe button just below this video? Thank you so much for doing that. And if you want to get notifications of all of my upcoming videos, be sure to click the little bell next to it. Okay, so in my cruises, I have been on the three basic different types of cruise ship staterooms. I've had an inside cabin, I've had an outside cabin, which is on the outside of the ship and has a window or a porthole, but you can't go outside. And then I've had a balcony cabin. And so I want to give you some of the pros and cons of each of these three main types. The one other type, well, actually there's technically two other types, is suites, which I have never been in a suite. I've never stayed in a suite, so I can't really give you information about that. I can tell you that the main advantages to it are it's going to be bigger, it's going to have more space, and it's going to have more amenities. And then along with the suite, the one other thing that you can get is concierge class. Concierge class is a special level of service for your cruise cabin, and that's something that you would only, I think you can only get it with a suite. Correct me if I'm wrong, but and it's almost like butler service. You have like really attentive extra service in concierge class, and you get some extra things that you wouldn't get normally. So, but I have not experienced those, so I'm not going to be talking about those today because the vast majority of people are going to be looking to book either an inside, an outside, or a balcony or veranda. Okay, balcony, veranda, basically the same thing. Okay, first let's talk about an inside cabin. And you'll hear cabin and stateroom kind of interchangeably. I don't know which one is actually correct, but it means the same thing. It's your room on the ship where you sleep, okay? So, all right, inside, our one time experiencing an inside was on the Disney Wonder, and it was Disney Wonder's cabins are particularly spacious because they're designed for families. However, this particular one was only a standard inside stateroom, which meant unlike all the other staterooms on Disney ships, it did not have the split bath. So it was more in line with what you'd get in an inside cabin on any other cruise line that doesn't have a split bath. So it was also kind of a unique configuration because it was kind of turned sideways. And so it just felt a little more spacious just because of the layout of the furniture and stuff. But I can still give you a fair assessment of some of the pros and cons of an inside stateroom. Okay, the first pro I can think of is inside staterooms almost always are going to be the least expensive. So if your primary goal is to save money, you're going to want to book an inside, okay? The second thing that kind of goes along with that is you're not really paying for stuff that you don't need. So if you really think you're only going to be in your cabin or your stateroom to sleep or to like change your clothes, go ahead and book an inside. Because if you don't care if you're going to be in your cabin like lounging or hosting people or looking out the window or whatever, if you're only going to be in there to sleep, which in a lot of cases is true for people, there's really no point in booking anything other than an inside because you just need a place to sleep. Another pro of an inside cabin, and this can be true especially for certain itineraries and the time of year, like for example, if you're going to the Arctic or the Norwegian fjords and you want to actually get some sleep in the summer, you're going to want an inside cabin because if, in case you don't know, the sun is up or maybe certain times for Australia and New Zealand too, the sun stays up for like 17, 18 hours. And so if you want to be able to get good solid sleep and have your body's circadian rhythms not be all screwed up because it's daylight all the time, an inside cabin can be really beneficial because there's no window. And along with that, another benefit of an inside cabin is that it is very dark. It's very dark and it's very quiet, as long as you don't have anything weird like above or below you. It's very good for sleeping. So if you want to be able to get good, solid, quality sleep, I would recommend an inside. And then kind of going back to the price thing, when we had that inside on the Disney Wonder, our stateroom attendant made a very good point to us. He said, if you want to be able to take a cruise, that the cruise itself is relatively expensive and you wouldn't be able to take that cruise any other way, get an inside stateroom, because then it's going to make it more affordable. So for example, if I want to go on a 10-night cruise or a 14-night European, or something really expensive, or even Alaska, and I can't afford to take that cruise unless I lower my price down, an inside cabin might save me enough money that I'm able to do that. Okay, what are the cons of having an inside stateroom? Well, along with that darkness for sleep, if you or someone in your party is afraid of the dark, it might be tricky because you're not going to get any natural light at all. Now, you could bring like little battery operated tea lights. You cannot bring anything with flame onto a cruise ship. Or you could bring like plug-in night lights. Sometimes they even have a night light in the bathroom already that'll stay on. So you're not going to be completely void of light in an inside, but if you're super afraid of the dark, that might be a disadvantage. Another obvious disadvantage is if you really do struggle with claustrophobia. So if you really feel uncomfortable in closed-in spaces, and actually I even have a little bit of trouble with this. I did totally fine on our Disney Wonder cruise, but like crowded elevator will get to me a little bit, things like that. So if you really have a difficult time with closed-in spaces and you don't like not being able to see outside, then I would not recommend getting an inside stateroom. The only other disadvantage is usually they're going to be the smallest. Now on Disney, small is relative because even their insides are bigger than a lot of staterooms on many other cruise lines. So they're going to be, but like on Royal Caribbean, your insides are going to be pretty small. And the other thing that I've noticed in studying cruise ship deck plans is sometimes the inside staterooms are the only ones that will occupy like 4 people. And so not only is the footprint of the stateroom smaller already, but they're putting more people into it. And I'm sure that the reasoning for that is because they're thinking of people who want to save money. They want to get as many people in the room as they can, and they want to pay as little as possible for the room. So they have them like that. But it can get really crowded in there. If you've got 4 people in there and all of their suitcases and everything, that can get pretty tight. So size would be an issue if you're concerned about that and you want to have plenty of space. An inside stateroom could be challenging. I do want to talk about a special type of inside stateroom that is more of a recent phenomenon on cruises. And that is an inside stateroom with a virtual porthole or a virtual window or a virtual balcony. And basically what this is, and a lot of cruise ships, Disney has these, Royal Caribbean has these, that I know of for sure, is it's basically a screen is what it is. But they'll make it to look like a window or a porthole or a balcony. They'll even put like a balcony rail across it. But it's somewhere on the outside of the ship, they have cameras that are projecting real-time views into those virtual portholes or windows or balconies. And so even though you don't have a window, you're getting some light, natural light. It's not real natural light, but the light from that. And you're also getting the real view that you would actually see if you did have a window or a porthole in your room. So if you want to save money, but you're worried about, the darkness or the claustrophobia feeling, a room with a virtual porthole or a virtual window or a virtual balcony is a really great option. The other thing I want to say about inside staterooms is that they are going to be located everywhere on the ship. They're going to be on basically every deck of the ship that has staterooms on it. And so you really have a lot of choice with an inside as to where you want to be in the ship. They're going to be on all decks, midship, aft, forward. So you could really pick like I want to be on deck 5 forward, you're going to be able to find an inside stateroom that's in that location, because they're going to have inside staterooms basically filling every little space on every deck that has staterooms on it. They're going to have insides. Okay, the next type of stateroom I want to talk about is an ocean view or an outside. So an ocean view or an outside is going to be on the outer parts of the ship, but it's not going to have a balcony. You're not going to be able to step outside or open a window or anything like that, but you are going to have a window. You're going to have either like a square, rectangular, actual window, or in many cases, it's going to be a porthole. Now, the portholes, you might think of like this tiny little hole. The only place I've actually seen them where they're that small is like on the Queen Mary docked in Long Beach in California on the old ships like that. And I think that's a scientific advancement in technology. Portholes on an ocean view stateroom now, like the one we had on Disney Magic, are huge. They're big. You can sit in it. My little guy, my son Andrew, when he was 4, could stand up in it and starfish, and he still didn't fill the whole porthole. So they're very big. They even have like benches in them to sit in and stuff. They're huge windows. So in most modern cruise ships, because of advances in technology and their ability to seal that window up from the water, they are really big. So you're not only going to get a nice window, you're going to get a big window. I mean, most cruise ship ocean view or outside cabin windows are large. So you're going to get lots of natural light. You're going to get a nice view of the ocean. Okay, so the pros of having an ocean view or an outside stateroom are that you're going to get that natural light and you're going to get a view of the ocean. And I don't know, if for some reason it makes you feel better knowing that you're on the outside wall of the ship or something. I mean, that is kind of an advantage, because that's one less wall that is, what am I saying? Sharing with another room. You know what I mean? That wall that's outside the ship, there's nobody on the other side of that wall. It's the outside world. So you only have the 2 walls that you might have another stateroom on either side of you, and then the hallway where the door is. So that's kind of an advantage. The other obvious advantage to an ocean view is that you're probably going to have a little bit more space. And I guess that would be and it's still going to be less expensive than a balcony stateroom. In most cases, you'd be surprised. Sometimes on ships now, newer ships where they're really cramming them full of balcony staterooms, there are so few ocean views left that those will actually end up being higher in price because they're rare and they're hard to get. Okay, some of the disadvantages of an ocean view stateroom are it's still going to be more expensive than an inside stateroom. It's still going to be probably a little bit smaller than a balcony stateroom, but it will be bigger than an inside, usually. And you don't get to go outside. You can see it, but you can't go out there. So if that's important to you, to be able to go out there and open the door and get fresh air, you cannot open the window. And there's a very practical reason for this. Most ocean view staterooms are on like decks 1, 2, and 3. So they're low on the ship. They are below the lobby, below the restaurant, stuff like that. That is something that you want to watch, and choose the location of your ocean view stateroom carefully. I didn't have a problem. We were on deck 2 with our ocean view stateroom on Disney Magic, and we were technically right under like bars and restaurants, and I never heard a thing. But on some ships that could be an issue. Keep in mind though, especially with restaurants, after a certain time, everybody's done eating, so they're not doing anything in there anymore. I mean, they might be cleaning up for a while, but you want to be careful of that if you're under like a disco or something. You don't want to, be careful in choosing your ocean view stateroom, because a lot of those public areas can be right above them. But that low to the ship location for ocean views can be an advantage, especially if you're worried about seasickness. Because if you're concerned about getting seasick, the best place to be on a ship is in the middle, midship, and as low as possible. So if you can get an ocean view midship, that will be your best location for avoiding seasickness in your cabin. And then the other place that you'll find a lot of ocean views is they will be in the very front of the ship on the sides. So they'll be like up kind of behind the bridge almost. They'll be like on decks 7, 8, 9 in the front. And that's kind of a structural design thing with the way cruise ships are. They can only take the balconies up to like this point, and then in front of those, they'll have like 8, 10, 12 ocean views, and then it's the front of the ship. You also will find ocean view staterooms on the front of the ship, and I have stayed in one of those too. And that was really cool. That was on Royal Caribbean's Explorer of the Seas. We were in a front-facing ocean view stateroom with a big round porthole again, and that room was incredibly spacious and big. It was great. It was really spacious. The only thing that was a little quirky about it was because of the slope of the front of the ship, that wall where the window was tilted a little bit. But you could still walk right up to the window and look out. So, and I actually really enjoyed that position of our stateroom on the ship because it kind of felt like it was rocking us to sleep at night, and it was actually very pleasant. So that's kind of the places that you'll find ocean views, and it can be kind of a cool, unique experience to have one of those ocean views in one of those fairly unique locations on a ship. Okay, let's talk about balcony or veranda staterooms. Again, I'm not completely sure if balcony and veranda means the same thing. I do know that a navigator's veranda is a little different than a regular veranda or balcony, and it has to do with the type of wall or railing that you'll have. And you want to be careful of that, because if you want your view to be completely unobstructed on your balcony and you don't want a white wall, like a metal wall there, you want to be careful when you read the description when you're booking your cruise. Is this a navigator's veranda? Because a navigator's veranda is actually, it's almost like a little room out there, and it'll have little benches and stuff. I actually think they're kind of neat. But if you want, you'd have to stand up to see out, is what I'm saying, because the bottom half is going to be solid. And so if you don't want that, you got to be careful when you choose. Okay. So a balcony or veranda stateroom is where you have a sliding glass door where you can literally walk out onto a balcony or a veranda and you are outside. Now, in most cases, you're still going to be at least partially covered. So not that you'd want to be sitting out there in the rain, but you probably could, unless it's like blowing at you or something. Okay, so for many, many cruise passengers, this is their ideal of going on a cruise. They want to have a balcony stateroom. Okay, I'm going to tell you, there's some cases where you don't want a balcony. If you are cruising in a rough, cold, windy conditions, because remember, cruise ships don't just go to the Caribbean. Cruise ships go all over the world. They go to Alaska, and they go to Antarctica, and they go to the Arctic Circle, and some of the places where you can cruise to, you're not going to want to go outside on a balcony depending on the time of year and the weather. Even some cruises like Bermuda out of New York City can be pretty rough. Oh, that was something I want to mention about an outside too. Those lower outside ocean view cabins can have really neat views very close to the water, and that can be really cool. So just a little tip for you on that one. Okay, so pros of a balcony or veranda stateroom are that it's going to be the biggest. It's probably going to be the biggest in size. It has a balcony, okay? So it's going to be the most spacious. It's going to be the biggest. You're going to get to go outside. You're going to have a view. You're going to be able to sit out on your balcony, things like that. Those are basically the two main pros of a balcony or veranda stateroom. The cons of a balcony or veranda stateroom are that it's going to be the most expensive, with the exception of those suites and concierge class that I talked about earlier. Okay, so it's going to be expensive. And there can be some disadvantages to a balcony. If you've got somebody who's breaking the cruise line rules and smoking on their balcony, or you're on one of the 4 remaining cruise lines in the world that does allow smoking on your balcony, you might get cigarette smoke. You might get noise from people blaring music on their balcony. you might get a view of something you don't want a view of when you're in port. So there could be some disadvantages and reasons you might not be able to enjoy your balcony. We've had a regular balcony on the Disney Wonder, and we've also had an aft-facing balcony on Mariner of the Seas on Royal Caribbean, and that aft-facing balcony, again, was fantastic. I really have to say, if you can get a forward-facing ocean view or an aft-facing balcony, those are some of the coolest cruise ship cabins you can get. They're very big because they tend to be longer, and there's some really cool views. And I just think those are a unique experience, and I'm going to try to get those as much as I can on future cruises. That kind of goes through the pros and cons of an inside, an ocean view, and a balcony cabin on cruise ships. And hopefully this gives you some information that you need to help you make your decision when you're booking your upcoming cruise. Thank you so much for joining me today for this video, guys. Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and safe travels.